We're going to take a look at a revenue stream problem. I'll pause while you read this. When you're being asked about a revenue stream, the two questions you might be asked to solve are the present value of that revenue stream and what's called the future value of this revenue stream. We'll talk a little bit more later about what those actually mean, but for now, let's go through the mathematics. Here are the two formulas for present and future value. What we have to do is plug the particulars into the formulas. R, lowercase r, represents the interest rate, and capital T represents the amount of time we're going to have that revenue. In this case, that would be 7 years. R would be 0.05 for 5%, and here's our revenue stream formula. Plugging all of that in gives us this. You may want to hit pause and just compare that everything ended up in the right place. And once we've set up these formulas, we can actually compute the integrals as a number and give us the present and future value of this revenue stream. You have a couple of different options. One is to calculate these by hand. If I were calculating these by hand, I would use integration by parts. Would be probably the best way to go about it. Although I don't recommend that if you have a calculator option available to you. These are more easily done on a calculator. If you have a Texas Instruments 84 specifically, it's pretty user-friendly. If you just hit Math and choose option 9, there's a Math button on your calculator. Math 9 will give you a pretty easily usable way to just type in the integrals and you'd get the answers. If you happen to be using a Texas Instruments 83 model specifically, they're not quite as user-friendly. You'll still hit Math 9. I'll do the one on the right here as an example, but you actually have to type in the integral in a kind of a strange format. I've also typed it here how it actually looks on the screen because the screen is only so wide. If you have a Texas Instruments 83, go ahead and hit pause and check that out. Regardless of how you go about calculating these, here are the two answers, and that gives us the present value and the future value of this revenue stream. And if you're a student in a calculus class and all you're looking for is the right answer, well, there they are, problem solved. But I always figure it's probably worth talking a little bit about what these things actually mean. So now I want to take you beyond the problem and talk about the meanings of these things that we just calculated and what a revenue stream actually means as well. Let's analyze this revenue stream formula first. I've graphed it here just to give you a visual. And what this particular example shows is that over a 7-year period, our revenue is declining. That quite often happens in real-world economics. And just to give you a further example, I picked sort of an arbitrary number, 2, say, and plugged it into this formula. Let's talk about what this means. Plugging in 2 and getting an answer of 8,800 means that after 2 years of revenue, we're generating revenue at a rate of $8,800 per year. But this should not be misinterpreted as saying in the second year, we generated $8,800 of revenue, because the revenue values are changing daily, technically instantaneously. And so, for example, if I were to plug in 2.5, I would get a different number. That's because 2.5 years into the revenue stream, we're generating revenue at a different value. So it's almost as if the revenue values in terms of dollars per year are changing moment by moment. As far as the actual answers go, the future value is probably the easiest one to understand. I'll just call this 67,000 so I don't have to pronounce every single dollar and cent. What the 67,000 means is that if we're generating revenue at the rate given by this formula, and we're continuously investing that in an account that's paying 5% interest, at the end of 7 years, we will have $67,000. Future value means what you're going to have in the future based on this revenue stream. Pretty straightforward. The present value is a little bit of a misnomer because it seems to imply that this revenue is currently at the beginning or presently that we have $47,000. And that's not really the case. If you're going to generate revenue over 7 years, then presently at the beginning, you have nothing until the revenue starts being generated. So we're literally starting with $0 at the beginning of this 7-year period in this problem. But what the $47,000 means is that having this 7-year long revenue stream is mathematically equivalent to as if we had the $47,000 today and weren't generating any other income.